remember that although I have, in the introduction, here I am, top of the Orkney Fisheries Association, a woman leader in a man's world, party to high-level politics. I'm a company director of a multi-million-pound company. Now, I'm all these things, but I remember where I came from and where lots of people still struggle. So for me, it's very personal, and politics is because of where I've come from and where I've lived. Now, I've seen, growing up as a mum, the very real effects of poverty on children. And at a playgroup and toddler group, you can see when people are stressed, don't have room or time to accumulate the life skills and the patience to cope properly with their children, no fault of their own, they're trying their best. Seeing violence and frustration in very, very young children. And of course, I edited out lots of the things in my life that are less glamorous. Edited out the fact that I delivered yellow pages, worked as a barmaid, I worked as a cleaner, I worked as a care assistant. Now, these are all very valuable jobs. Why do I edit them out? Because they have less status in our society. Less status because they're very necessary, low paid, and very hard work. Part of what I've done in my life is work with troubled teenagers, many of whom are young men, and realise that by the time we get a child at 14 or 15 who is refusing school, who's disengaged, who's involved in petty crime, we are struggling hard to set them on the right path, which is why early intervention and tackling the needs of children early on in life is so important. So for me, I'm voting yes because I see this as an opportunity. I see a lot of things that we have with a backlog of difficulties in this small enclave of Scotland, this population of 5 million people. We have a lot of big jobs to do in terms of turning around the harm that has been done to people psychologically and people physically, people mentally and collectively as a population that lacks confidence and lacks self-esteem. But it can be done. But it can only be done by taking the money that makes things work and reprioritising it to where it really is most needed. So, for me, a yes vote is about grabbing opportunity, realising our problems, realising where we come from, realising what needs to be done, and starting to turn that tanker around. It's a big, big job. It will not be easy because psychologically our collective population has been very low. Although I think in this last while of debate and engagement in the referendum politics, people are starting to learn about why these things happen and how potentially they can be changed. Looking at how patterns operate in other countries, for instance. We hear a lot about the Nordic model, about the femininity of different governments. The UK is described as a masculine government. It's nothing to do with gender politics. It's about how the UK actually conducts itself in terms of what it values, like money over emotional well-being and that kind of thing. If you look at the Nordic countries, they're classed as feminist models of government that are much more caring governments, nurturing governments, and prioritise those kinds of things. So, what I would like to see is Scotland, our population, our 5 million people who live here, gaining the political powers, okay? The political powers to access all of the potential in terms of the money, but also of the population, of every single one of us in this room that may right now be struggling just to keep functioning. Lots and lots of women can't come to a meeting like this because they're too busy. They're just busy dealing with the stuff at home, dealing with the kids, going to try and, you know, get a few bargains at Lidl's and eat things out. Women are absolutely subsumed at keeping everything in the back room going. So what I want to see is the potential released in order that women can achieve their best potential. All members of our society can. This enormous resource that at the moment is just stultified, can be opened up, I think, for good in our community, in our society. So a combination of people, the levers of money, how we prioritise them is up to what shade of political party or kind of government we want to elect in 2016. There are two very clear steps. The one is gaining the access to the political power and then choosing what sort of political power. Okay? It's not about the SNP government's white paper. That is only one version. And don't be misled by anyone who tells you it's just about that, or about any one party. The steps are simple. One is achieving independence, and second is deciding what the political priorities are.
Listening to what Fiona said there, I don't disagree with her about a whole lot of things about poverty and inequality and things like that. I think I would just perhaps differ with you on the way we might sort that. I have considered whether there are specifically women's issues when it comes to a decision, and I really failed to find any. The things which make me a no voter, I suspect, are the same as would make a man vote no. I'm a passionate no voter, and have been since the referendum was announced and before all the complications and back and forward bits have been articulated. So consequently, up to now, I've put my sticker on my car, I've pinned on my no badge, I've given a couple of friends no badges, and I've pressed the little arrow to hide Facebook posts from friends who are voting yes, because I know how I was going to vote, so I wasn't having my mind changed, so that's fine. And then yesterday, I've been forced to come out and justify myself. So, as I say, by force of circumstance, I'm here to explain myself to you. I'm not here to evangelise. I don't like it in a religious form, nor do I like it in a political one. So those of you here who have not decided which way to vote can listen to the arguments put forward and make up your own minds. I'll tell you how I feel about it. And at the moment, I'm sorry, I'm feeling sick. While that's good for weight loss, and I certainly need to lose some, continuing nausea is not pleasant. So why am I feeling sick? I'm feeling sick because I see a union that's evolved over the last 300 years, and it has evolved, it's not been static, to give us the best of both worlds, being replaced by something smaller, narrower, and inward-looking. As a no supporter, I see that I have everything to lose. The benefits of having a parliament for our domestic affairs and being part of the UK for our armed services currency, being in Europe, to name but a few. Better Together has been accused of being negative, but it's because there's a lot to lose. It has a duty to point out. The Yes campaign, on the other hand, has nothing to lose. You can pass off opinions you don't like scaremongering and untrue, accuse the Westminster Parliament of bullying. You've got nothing to lose unless you win, when I fear all these put-downs are going to come fluttering home to roost. And why do they want to leave if they still want to make use of what the UK has to offer? There's a kind of jokey article doing the rounds at the moment that Alex Salmon's refusing to pay his gym membership, but he intends to come by and use the equipment whenever he wants. Such is the success of the United Kingdom, they want to keep much of it. So what better advert can they be than how much they want to embrace? They want to keep the monarchy, the currency, the Bank of England, the National Lottery, the NHS blood transfusion and transplant service, the Royal Mint, the research councils, the air and maritime accident investigation branches, the Committee on Radioactive Waste Management, the Green Investment Bank, the Met Office, the Hydrographic Office, the UK Benefit System Administration, the DVLA, and the BBC as it is, so that the programmes made in England can come north. So why, if you're wanting to go, are you wanting to keep all these things? Then we come to currency. I know it's there's been backy forward bits, and currency is a switch off for a lot of people. But numerous academics and monetary experts have stated that there cannot be a currency union. This is not nonsense. The Professor of Political Economy at Glasgow University, Ronald MacDonald, has said that Alex Salmond's currency union would collapse within a year, and that as a consequence, Scotland's economy would shrink. This means lost jobs, lost revenues essential for pensions, benefits and public service. If Scotland becomes an independent country, it will not have a seat at the table. Yes, it can use the pound, but it has no control over it. It will have a similar status to Panama, who uses the US dollar. Yes, it can apply to the Eurozone to use the euro, but you have to apply. It can have its own currency, as Dennis Canavan, the convener of the Yes campaign, proposes. Yes, you could have 100 sturgeons that make one salmon, or as somebody said, 100 bales making one Jock Thompson. Yes, that's flippant. But none of these things are thought to be beneficial options for the country or easy to set up. EC membership. This won't be automatic. It will have to be negotiated. Yeah, you'll probably get in the end, but you can be sure as hell that Spain, for one, will not make this easy. They don't want to give the Catalans the message that it's okay to break away. And Scotland's also unlikely to have UK negotiated benefits such as VAT exemption on children's clothes. Free movement between Scotland and England. That will work fine until the Scottish and the rest of the UK's immigration policies differ. Then one side or other is going to feel it necessary to secure the borders. Scottish business needs a stable currency, EC members and free borders to function. I'm confused about what's going to happen about the armed services. Does the National Regiment of Scotland become President Salmond's bodyguard? What happens to Scottish servicemen in other regiments, the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force? I don't know, perhaps somebody can tell me that. Embassies. Is Scotland going to have to pay to set up embassies in every country? There's also a notion that's doing the rounds that by becoming an independent Scotland, it will be a Tory-free nirvana. I'm not a Tory, but in Alex Salmond's lifetime, Conservatives have won more than 50% of the Scottish vote in a Scottish election. Every population has a right wing, and you don't need a degree in political science or even a long memory to know that there are quite a few Tories about. I know some are threatening to move away, but I'm afraid I don't think they're going to be wiped out. Of course, Scotland will be an independent country. But I think the divorce will be protracted, even on areas of agreement. It will be expensive, far more expensive than anyone proposes, because, I'm sorry, these things always are. Surely this money can be spent on things that matter to people like health, education, jobs. And I'm willing to bet a humongous amount of money that it would not all be done and dusted by 2016. In order to pay for the promises and balance the books in an independent Scotland, public spending would have to be cut and taxation would have to be rise, because at the moment Scotland receives more money in block grant than is generated in oil revenues. If you look to Norway, they have a wonderful welfare state, but they have very high personal taxation. It's very difficult to have one without the other. Can I just come back with just a few things Fiona said? Firstly, about the fact that Westminster could do away with the Scottish Parliament. Yes, technically it could, but all three parties, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democrats, have all stated they are in favour of devolution and they're in favour of the Scottish Parliament, and no one's going to come and take it away. Boris Johnson may not like it, but he's won among the Scottish Scottish Parliament is not going to be removed. The pound, yes, of course anybody can use it, but you don't have control. If Scotland becomes an independent country, the, call it continuing UK, rest of UK, which would be England, Wales, Northern Ireland, has to look to its interests. And it's not in its interest to have a foreign country having all the benefits that Scotland has at the moment. Yes, it can use it, but it won't have a seat at the big table. You may not like that, but that, I'm afraid, is what will happen. Because the rest of the UK are going to say, you're an independent country now, use our pound if you want, but you're not going to sit at the decision-making table. If the vote is no, then there is a list that came out yesterday of, can I find it? I can read all these bits of paper. Alistair Carmichael made an announcement yesterday about various things that are going to happen. There'll be islands proofing, like in the Scottish Parliament at the moment. All bills must take account of an island's perspective, that's written into what's there. So there will be, from what I take from the wording here, there will be that Westminster legislation that affects Scotland has taken an island's perspective. It says here, a new islands working group will be supported by a dedicated position in the Scottish office and have its agenda set by the islands, covering priorities like islands innovation zones, construction costs and community benefit. So, okay, this is set in civil service speak, that islands working group to look at things. A new oil and gas forum. Renewable energy, the framework includes a firm UK government commitment to renewable energy delivery forum, focus on getting transmission links to the islands. UK government also shares the Three Islands Council's ambitions for deployment of renewable energy and for research and development activity, and we will assure that obstacles to securing the necessary infrastructure are tackled effectively. Social needs, the framework recognises island groups face particular challenges in the areas of transport, postal services, digital connectivity and fuel poverty. Transport, this includes seeking an extension to the air discount scheme and a commitment to consider fiscal measures to support transport connectivity within islands groups. Not quite sure what their second part of that sentence means, but presumably seeking to extend the air discount scheme should be to putting it back to businesses where it was taken away from. Postal services, the UK government is committed to working with retailers, consumer groups and enforcers to ensure parcel delivery charges to remote regions are fair, transparent and in line with the UK Statement of Principles for Parcel Delivery. Digital connectivity is of great importance. Let's see what they're requiring a subsidy from both the UK and Scottish governments to overcome the geographical and commercial challenges in delivery of these services. The UK government is committed to fund mobile infrastructure project. I assume that might just mean we would get 3G here, but because we don't at the moment. Working to improve mobile coverage in areas of the UK which are most difficult to reach, aiming to address market failure. The UK government is also committed to providing parity of minimum service level. This is for internet speeds. Delivering a standard broadband of at least 2 megabytes per second to all premises in Orkney and the Western Isles. They're going to research new technologies. Prime estate, the framework also contains measures to strengthen the transparency and accountability of the Crown estate. EU and representation on government bodies, a dedicated point of contact to offer advice and guidance to the islands within the UK representation to the EU. Does that mean there's somebody you can go and talk to about EU issues? I think. The framework includes increased island representation on government bodies, including the Scottish Business Board and Highland. So there is a commitment to do more. should there be a no vote? As I say, if there's a yes vote, then that all passes to the independent Scotland to do whatever. But if there's a no vote, there is a definite look from an island's perspective to get more for us.
Legislation is passed is by it becoming part of a party's manifesto on which they are elected, and then the government passes the legislation in Parliament. The things that Rosie is describing to you may sound very nice, but they are worthless in terms of how actually politics works. Now you have to be sure that you're going to get the government that's proposing these for a start. And politics is about probabilities. The likelihood at this time is that there will be no overall Conservative government in the next election. There will probably be a coalition, very likely made up of UKIP parties. Boris Johnson is making a return to politics. He has already said there is no need to give the Scottish Government or the Scottish Parliament any more powers. Tam Dael has said the Scottish Government or the Scottish Parliament should be scrapped. The Scottish Parliament can be scrapped by the UK Parliament tomorrow at the stroke of a pen. Okay? It's not secure for the Scottish people. Now, in terms of the European dimension, nothing can be enshrined that protects islands in the European Constitution. The UK went into Europe and agreed its treaty on Europe. That cannot be renegotiated now at this time. Many other countries that joined Europe who had island populations recognised the different needs of islands, their peripherality, the difficulties of transport, and actually wrote that in, at ground level when they went into Europe. The UK didn't do that because Scotland and Scotland's islands were not important at that time. The only way that you will get enshrined protection for Scottish islands is through the accession treaty to Europe that the Scottish government will. Some countries, for instance Turkey, that's been wanting to join for a long, long time, is very far down the line in terms of all its matching of the standards to become an EU member. Scotland has been an EU member for 40 years. Okay? We have all the EU food legislation, the packaging, all the stuff, lots of stuff that people don't like, but lots of stuff that protects people as well. So that's already in place. It's not different. Which is why politicians like to assume that ordinary people don't know about these things. There are two routes. There's an Article 48 and an Article 49 accession routes to the EU. What the Scottish Government will want to do is to take the route which already in which Scotland already is, where it matches all the tiers of accession. There will be some that will have to be negotiated, but in May most of them can just be transferred automatically. So that is the reality. We are not Turkey. We have been in the EU for 40 years. East Germany became an EU member practically overnight. So don't believe people when they tell you it's going to be long and complicated and fraught. The politics of Europe is pragmatism. It's about doing things in the best interests of the EU as a whole. And as far as it's a highly democratic, sometimes overly democratic because it's very bureaucratic, but its interests are in making things work. Similarly, with the currency situation, you are being told lies about the currency. Anybody can use the pound. Outer Mongolia could decide they use the pound. The country buys a pile of pounds. Whether they can swap their currencies is a different thing. But currencies are fluid. When I was in Poland in the 1970s, there was zlotys and dollars operating in the same country. Okay? Scotland's much more stable than Poland was in those days. It's perfectly normal to use a pound. The issue over the pound is, do we talk to the other people that use the pound as a currency that are our near neighbours, or do we not? Okay? So it's very clear that talking to other people using the currency to ensure that one area of the currency partnership doesn't soar above another is sensible. And you see Mark Carney, the Bank of England, which is independent of politicians and business, they will make whatever happens work. That's in their interest to do that.